There are reasons why I am sitting outside cutting up oranges with a massive box of oranges sitting next to me. And all those reasons have to do with health in general, um, especially reproductive and metabolic health, though. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Maybe not so much the oranges. I'll tell you a little bit about the oranges, but mostly about me sitting outside, which, by the way, when I filmed this video, I did not know that no roof November was a thing. Apparently it's a thing, and I love it. I've heard of no spend November, no shave November. I've heard of all kinds of like not doing things in November, but this is my favorite, no roof November. And it's basically saying, I think because of consumerism, everybody thinks it's like Christmas time already, and so they want to bundle up and just be inside and be cozy, and I understand that. But it's actually, in most parts of the world, still really nice out in November. It's really important that we get natural light and fresh air and we're out in the sunshine. So I really like the No Roof November challenge. If you knew about that, drop a comment because I'm just now learning about it, but it's something I've kind of like, I guess accidentally participated in for a while because I'll just come outside and do a task that would have taken me a long time to do inside. So if it's a really, really nice day and I want to get sunlight, I want to be outside, but I have stuff I have to do, it's going to take me a while. If I can move that project outside, I will do it. And on this day, I was making juice. So every month in my Azure standard order, I get at least one, sometimes two, huge boxes of organic oranges. We love oranges, but I really like to make orange juice as opposed to buying bottled juice because even a really high quality organic bottled juice is pasteurized. So it's not really a living food. Whereas fresh squeezed orange juice, that is a living food that is really high in vitamin C. So pasteurization degrades and oxidizes vitamin C. Um, so you're not getting the same benefit there. Fresh squeezed juice also has active enzymes and bioavailable minerals and structured sugars. So it's just a more metabolically supportive food, fresh squeezed juice, that is, that your body can recognize. It's not going to cause blood sugar spikes like the bottled stuff does, because the bottled stuff, like I said, it's just not as alive as when it's fresh. So here I'm making another adrenal cocktail. I showed you guys these last week on last week's video. And actually, if you go back a few years, you can see me making them because this has been something I've done off and on for a couple of years. The adrenal cocktail, that is, which is just a, like a good freshly squeezed juice. Orange juice is great. Pomegranate juice is great. And some salt, some minerals. I add liquid minerals into mine, and some coconut water for potassium. That's what I add into mine, at least. So as we chat today, I'm going to be making a leftover extravaganza soup. That's what it turned into. I started cooking this day with no real. I thought I was going to make a chicken pot pie because I had roasted chickens the day before. I had a bunch of leftovers and produce in the fridge, and I thought that sounds really good. But then as I got started prepping veggies, my daughter asked if she could make a French loaf. And that recipe is on my blog. You can just go to Hopewell Heights blog and type in French loaf. And I said yes. Then I was like, you know what? Let me make this easy on myself. And instead of making a pot pie, I will just take these ingredients that I'm working on for pot pie filling and thin it out a little more and make soup. We'll have soup and bread. It worked out perfectly. That is what we did. People are waking up to the fact that it's probably not a good idea to have synthetic toxic fibers and materials on our skin, in our home, and around us at all times. And they're switching to natural fibers, even for things like insulation in their home. I have a friend who is building a home right now and using wool for the insulation. And I'm pretty jealous because when we built our house, 7 or 8 years ago, that just wasn't on my mind. And we used fiberglass, and I wish I could just take it all out and put wool in, but I can't. One thing we were able to get rid of as far as fiberglass was our old mattress. We switched it out for a Birch Living natural mattress, which is 100% free of fiberglass and polyurethane foam, so there's no harmful off-gassing. It is made with 100% natural organic materials such as natural wool, organic latex, organic cotton. And what I love so much about wool is that it has natural temperature regulation and flame retardant properties. It also has antimicrobial properties. So it's just the perfect natural fiber for a mattress. The reason most companies use fiberglass in mattresses is for the flame retardant properties, and it's just cheap, but it's so bad for you. So it's definitely worth the extra investment to go with wool. We have had our Birch Luxe natural mattress for over a year and a half now, and it is so comfortable for both my husband and I. He is a pretty picky sleeper because he's just like very tall and has done manual labor his whole life, so he's had chronic back pain, and he loves our Birch Luxe natural mattress. I also love that I have peace of mind. I do co-sleep. I have like at least one baby in bed with me most of the night, and I just like knowing that we're not, breathing harmful, toxic off-gassing from polyurethane foams while we sleep. It can be really intimidating thinking of switching over to natural fibers for every single thing in your life all at once, but with this one swap, getting rid of your toxic mattress and switching it out for a Birch Living natural mattress, you can switch over to natural fibers for a third of your life, because that's how long we spend in our life sleeping. And right now is a great time to do that. Now through the 25th of November, Birch Living is running their Black Friday sale, so you will get 27% off site-wide on all Birch Living products. They have their standard Birch mattress, their Birch Luxe natural mattress, which is more of like a pillow top. That is what we have, and I love it. They also have their Birch Kids natural mattress. We have one of those in my daughter's room. We have 3 Birch Living natural mattresses now, so it's just kind of one of those things that whenever one of our old mattresses is ready to be replaced, we replace it with a Birch natural mattress. You can use my code BirchPartner27 or click my link to apply the 27% off savings site-wide. I'll put my code, my link, and all the details below the video, so just tap the more button and check it out. So the main thing that I want to talk about today is artificial light and indoor living and how that has affected metabolic health and fertility. And yes, I know I'm inside as I'm filming this, but some things I just still have to do inside. Like, we don't totally live off grid and outside. I wish we did. I'm not even kidding you. Totally wish we did. My husband's like, nope, not happening. However, the guy has come a long way. Like 6 months ago, he said the same thing about regenerative farming and, organic farming practices. He's like, nope, not a chance. But, something changed for him that caused him to be interested in that. And now here we are 6 months later, and he is rotational grazing our cattle with no chemicals. He's built chicken tractors and, looking to buy sheep. And it's just crazy how much can change in a short amount of time. So you never know, maybe he and I will end up in alignment on like the off-grid thing. And no, I'm literally not kidding. Like, I do want to live off-grid. And maybe after I talk about the things I'm going to talk about today, you'll understand why. So let's talk about artificial light, indoor living, and how it is destroying our health and fertility. I thought it would be fun to kind of do a little timeline, because it doesn't take that many brain cells to realize that we have not had artificial light for that long in human history. For most of history, it was just, the sunlight, the moonlight, the starlight, and firelight. Maybe, candles, other kinds of light, but, just very natural light spectrums, natural forms of light, to where rhythms were maintained pretty easily. You basically had to stop moving and stop working in the nighttime hours, and you had to sleep and rest. You just couldn't carry on the entire civilization and life, 24/7. And really, that's how we were built to live, is to have these natural, built-in periods of rest, not just as individuals, but as society, as humanity. So before artificial light, in like pre-1800s, okay, we're going back 220 some years, pre-1800s. Life was dictated by moon cycles, firelight, sunlight, and menstrual cycles. We've talked about this before. synced with the lunar cycle. The lunar cycle is about 29 days long. That's about how long a healthy menstrual cycle should be. And women would usually ovulate with the full moon and menstruate with the new moon. It was very predictable, so they could kind of measure things by the moon. They didn't need apps or trackers. They could just watch the moonlight, and that would have been a very natural thing for them to do. And then following these natural sleep and wake and work and rest rhythms would have meant that they had higher natural levels of melatonin at night. And we talked in last week's video that naturally higher levels of melatonin signaled by natural light and dark cycles strengthens ovulation. It regulates the hormones that lead to ovulation. Go back and check out last week's video. It is titled "'Tis the Season to Get Pregnant," if you want to learn more about that. But yeah, people's melatonin was naturally higher, ovulation was stronger, cortisol was more balanced. There was a strong circadian rhythm, which led to increased natural levels of dopamine, meaning people had a better libido as well. So this is all pre-artificial light. People certainly had their struggles, but health-wise, they were a lot better off metabolically and as far as fertility. And then from about 1820 to 1890, we have the early industrial light era with gas lamps. So we are seeing long factory hours and gaslight used more commonly in cities overnight. And this is really like the first large scale sleep disruption and night shift work type of era in documented history. And there were reports of menstrual cycle changes in women. Women were factory workers, especially women who were working shift work in factories, were reporting irregular menstrual cycles. And this is all the way back in the 1820 to 1890. There was a higher miscarriage rate in night shift mill workers, and even some documentation of what they called industrial fatigue syndrome. So just working in this environment in the late night hours when it should be dark, but you're using gas lamps to stay awake and be productive. It was causing a fatigue type syndrome for people. So then we move into the era of the electric light bulb. This is like 1890 to 1950. So we start with the Edison bulb, but basically it's incandescent lights, right? That's what a lot of us probably were used to before the rollout of LED, and we'll get to that. And that's actually still what I have in my house is incandescents. So there was widespread electrical lighting, okay? From 1890 to 1950, basically everybody hopped on board. Everybody got on board with electricity. So they had, light bulbs and electricity in their homes. And this is really where we see the entire world starting to just be open and, functioning at some level 24/7. So people are sleeping less in general overall because of artificial light, falling asleep with the TV on, all those sorts of things. And fertility rates really start like a long-term noticeable decline. Infertility is a lot more common. There's a rise in insomnia, depression, and female, especially in women, like nervous disorders, anxiety, and things like that. Then that leads us into the, like the TV era, 1950s to like the 1980s. So in this era, pretty much everyone gets on board with having TVs in their home and in their bedrooms. And so this is introducing an entire new spectrum of light, like blue light spectrum that humans had not experienced before. And during this time, and I know there are more factors, especially with food and soil quality. I talk about that stuff a lot. I'm specifically talking about light though in this video. So during this TV era, we start to see earlier puberty onset, more PMS complaints, and the first link between shift work and breast cancer is identified. And actually, most people are probably not aware of this, but the World Health Organization now classifies night shift light. So if you're working shift work, night shifts, that light exposure is a probable carcinogen. That's how dangerous it is due to the estrogen disruption and melatonin suppression. So this is a really big deal. This isn't just like some trend that the latest influencer is telling you like, oh, blue light's harmful. yeah, it's being recognized as a probable carcinogen. That is absolutely crazy. So the TV era gives way and leads us into the computer era of the 1980s to like 2005. This was totally my childhood. Everybody had a big desktop computer. You would get on there on like MySpace and on like, oh my gosh, I'm aging myself, Napster and things like that. And you would burn CDs. If that sounds like you don't even know what language I'm speaking, you're either a lot older than me or a lot younger than me, but I just gave my age away totally. But the computer era. So this really combines like fluorescent office lighting and screens for a lot of people, especially working age people. And you can imagine how harmful that is for working age women in their, metabolic health and reproductive health. So PCOS prevalence really climbs in this computer era. We see the emergence of IVF and fertility, different kind of artificial like assisted fertility methods. We see a huge rise in reported like chronic fatigue and thyroid disorders, and vitamin D deficiency epidemic goes through the roof. That leads us straight into the era that we are in today. That is the LED and smartphone era, where things went from like a slow, long decline to totally falling off a cliff. This is 2006, like when around the same time that smartphones and LED lights become really, really widespread up until now. This is our present era. So we are exposed to high intensity blue light from screens and LED light bulbs pretty much at all times. Like 8 to 12 hours a day minimum we're exposed to these things. And then if you have, TV in your room or different light sources in your room, then it could be even more. It could even be while you are sleeping that you are exposed to these things. So since 2006, we have seen a sharp decline in fertility rates worldwide. Smartphones and LED lights, those are the two things that happened around that time. Record amounts of people are seeking reproductive care with like in vitro fertilization and things like that. Drastically increased miscarriage rates, huge sperm quality drop. We talked about that last week. A lot of that does have to do with men carrying their phone in their pocket, which is near their reproductive organs. It's heating them up. And essentially, like I said last week, the best way I think to tell guys about that is just to be straight and just be like, hey, dude, that's frying your balls, because that's essentially what it's doing. Rates of PCOS, endometriosis, and unexplained fertility are just continue to skyrocket. And I think this is causing problems in pregnancies as well, because melatonin plays a lot of roles. It protects the mitochondrial function in the ovaries, in embryos, and in the placenta. And exposure to blue light at night decreases natural melatonin production by up to 90%. So this is such a big issue. It really is so important that we practice good light hygiene. And if you don't know what I mean by that, or if you just want to dive deeper, then I made a little ebook that is for free. You guys can grab that by just clicking in the description of the video. So below the video, tap the more button. And in there, I have like 7 specific ways that this is harming us metabolically and hormonally, and then 7 action steps that most people can probably do, not going to cost a lot of money, to really change your light hygiene habits and improve your health when it comes to the living in the era of smartphones and LED lights. So that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have a question, comment, drop it below the video. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all next week.